all, AD here from Hunts & Johns. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I'm on my way home from somewhere else in Sussex and I saw a sign for a church, an old wooden sign, so I thought we'd pop in and investigate. I can see from the notice board there that it's called St John the Evangelist in Newtimber. So let's go and investigate. Oh, look, it says here that it's been mentioned in the Domesday Book, so it's going to be a very, very old one. Oh, let's see if I can get in. There we go. Oh, look at this. Prickly sow thistle. For thousands of years it has been cultivated throughout the world, used in oils and medicines, but some cultures believe the plant has magical properties, repelling thieves and warding off evil. I like that. Go up the path. Always find something interesting. So I'm going to walk up, I'll show you around. I'm going to do a voiceover when I get home when I'm editing this because I haven't got a clue about anything to do at this church, so otherwise it's going to be quite boring, isn't it, if I'm just like showing you around. Anyway, let's go. I love this when you come up around the corner. You never know what I'm going to find. Could be a tiny little church. It could be an absolutely massive church. Oh, it's Norman. I can see a Norman tower peeking out. God's own garden. Nice little churchyard. Maybe we'll check that out afterwards. Some nice headstones there. And we're in luck with this one. It says, "Welcome, the church is open." Oh, look at this. Look, a welcoming sign, and then there's lovely, some water, look, some doggy treats. Oh, it's got the bell tower in the porch. It's unusual. If you do want to support the channel, you can hit the link in the description, which is buy me a coffee, and then when I visit these, I always make a donation to the church. Now, if there's ever a QR code or a website that you can donate directly to one of these little churches, then I will also put that in the description. But I can't see anything, but they do have a card reader, so I'm going to make a donation. Like I always do. I just think it's really important. There we go. I think it's really important to make a little bit of a contribution every time I visit, because I know these buildings are so expensive for their upkeep, and it's really important that they don't go to complete wreck and ruin. So this is surprisingly big for such a small little place. And as we go into the church here, some lovely stones. I know people like to collect those. And then I found this information board that I really wasn't expecting for a little rural church like this to have all this history. But I'm going to show you a couple of things and then we'll get into it a little bit more. The font there is actually 19th century, so it's quite new. And then there was a copy of the entry into the Domesday Book. So it's always nice to see that. Now this piece of wood, I had to do a little bit of investigation into this. They reckon that it's 15th century and that it may have been a piece of the original rood screen. So that was the wood screen that used to divide the nave and the chancel back in the day. There's this lovely picture from 1802, and then I thought this was really unique. I'm sorry about the light here, it's quite difficult to see, but there's a whole map here of the churchyard, and it's all numbered, and then you can look at the corresponding numbers and find out who's buried there. I've never seen such a comprehensive guide to burials in a graveyard. I thought it was fantastic. That's a list of some of the fees, and then on the board here is a list of all the rectors going back to 1280. St John the Evangelist Church in Newtimber is the oldest building in the parish, and it dates back to the 13th century with the first recorded rector in 1281. Now it's set within the South Downs National Park. The church says a very small rural parish, but despite its quiet location, it remains an active and important part of local life. The building is open every day and it's used regularly for worship and community events, and it's also a key stopping point for walkers and visitors. Now, the public footpath runs alongside the church, and this follows a line of a former Iron Age routeway, meaning the site has been a place of movement, gathering and significance for thousands of years. So, I mean, at first glance, Newtimber Church, on the outside, it just looked to me like a peaceful rural church. However, when I went inside, I found that it's got a rare and often overlooked window into Britain's colonial past, particularly its relation to slavery, abolition and the empire. Now, I know very little about British history. I'm not British myself, although I've lived here for quite a long time. So when I visit these places, I'm just taking you with me. As I say, I'm not an expert. I just share with you what I've learned, either in the church or afterwards, because, you know, you can do your investigations now on Google, so it's a lot easier than it ever used to be to get information. But because of the significance of this place, I thought I can't really do it justice. I know I can't do it justice. So what I'm going to do is I've popped a link where a professor has done a talk here at Newtimber Church. He's done a blog post and he's made a YouTube video, and he goes into a lot more detail. Now, these two wooden figures were found out in the vestry and they're of an unknown age. So one of the most significant connections that this church has is to the 19th century colonial plantations and enslaved labour. Now, these connections are still visible today. There's loads of memorials and records within the church, and rather than avoiding this history, Newtimber Church offers an opportunity to acknowledge it openly and honestly. And one of the most significant families was the Gordon family. So in the 19th century, Charles Gordon Jr., formerly of Bracco, Jamaica, and later of Newtimber Place, received over £8,000 in compensation following the abolition of slavery in the British Empire. The compensation was paid for the loss of 403 enslaved Africans and people of African heritage. It is important to be clear about what this means. When slavery was abolished, enslaved people were not compensated. Instead, large sums of money were paid to enslavers by the British government. Now, I don't get into politics on this channel. I'm really not interested. So if you come in the comments about your political opinions, you'll just be removed straight away. I'm just stating the facts here. And another important figure connected to the church is Sidney Buxton, who was an Earl. Now, he was a descendant of Thomas Fowell Buxton, and he's one of the most prominent abolitionists in British history. So he played a major role in the campaign to end slavery within the British Empire. However, the story does not end there. Sidney Buxton became the second Governor-General of South Africa, serving during that time of British imperial rule, and in this role he was instrumental in recruiting black South African men through their tribal leaders to help support Britain during the First World War. Now, these men were recruited not as combat soldiers but as labourers, and then that brings us to another link to the church. So the SS Mendi in 1917 was a troop ship, and it was carrying those black South African men who had been recruited by Mr. Buxton to support the war effort. The ship was rammed in the English Channel, and over 600 men tragically lost their lives. Now, these men, shockingly, were not permitted to carry weapons. Instead, they were issued with shovels. So this reflected their role as not as soldiers but as labourers. So for many years their sacrifice had been largely ignored within the mainstream British war memory. And this is where Newtimber Church plays a unique role in remembering these men. Inside the church is a dedicated memorial to the men who died on the SS Mendi. Now, this memorial acknowledges both the service and the injustice they faced. And alongside the memorial is a ceremonial staff. Now, this was presented by the indigenous people of South Africa. The staff was given to ensure that the church would become a symbolic home for the men who were lost at sea. Today, that staff is a deeply treasured object, and it's currently part of an exhibition at Chichester Cathedral, helping to share the story of those men with a wider audience. And again, if you want to know more about this, then please do click on the links down below to the YouTube and the blog. It's really, really interesting. I've actually read the blog and watched the YouTube video. I mean, this church really does matter. It may be a small rural building, but its history connects us to some of the most important and difficult themes in British history: the slavery and compensation, abolition and its contradictions, colonial power, and the unequal treatment of black people within the British Empire. So it's not a story of simple good or evil. It is a story of complex legacies where faith, wealth, morality and empire are all very closely intertwined. But by preserving the church and letting the people tell its full story, including the very uncomfortable parts, Newtimber offers something rare. It's a place where local heritage and global history meet. And there's the picture of the staff. If you're ever in Chichester Cathedral, do check that out. And I love this picture of the people. And it was presented, so yeah, really wasn't expecting that at all. Now, St John the Evangelist is more than just the oldest building in the parish. It's a living historical record. The walls hold stories of worship and community, but also stories of enslavement, exploitation, resistance and remembrance. And as we head over here, you can see this is one of the many public footpaths that runs through the South Downs. So this would have been where the old Iron Age trackway went past. And you can see it's got beautiful views over the South Downs. It's certainly not a place where you'd expect to find such a rich colonial connection. There's some lovely graves here. This was rather beautiful, but a load of them, as you can see, have fallen over and fallen into disrepair. Sometimes they fall over, sometimes they lay down for safety reasons. And there was some just stacked up there. Unfortunately, you could no longer read these. And this was the Buxton Family Memorial. Beautiful piece of craftsmanship, and doeth with thy might, which was on all of the family's memorials within the church. But beautiful piece of stonework. And this was a lovely grave that I found in loving memory of their dear son, who again had died by the hands of enemy action, and he was on HMS Dolphin. By acknowledging all the aspects of the past, I think this church continues to serve not only as a place of faith, but as a place of reflection, learning and honesty, which is very refreshing, don't you think? I'm going to wrap the video up here. I do hope you enjoyed. I'm going to put some links down in the description there for more information, because there was an awful lot to unpack in that church. Sorry about the noise, you couldn't make it up. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and the minute I put the camera on to say anything, there's noise. So my apologies. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe, and I shall see you for the next one.